The Pod News Weekly Review uses chapters. The last word in podcasting news. This is the Pod News Weekly Review with James Cridland and Sam Sethi.
I'm James Cridland, the editor of Pod News.
And I'm Sam Sethi, the CEO of True Fans.
AI slop for a true crime podcast can be annoying, but AI slop for a health podcast, giving wrong recommendations to people, can be dangerous.
Alberto Betella from RSS.com on the AI slopocalypse and what we should do about it. And SiriusXM and iHeartMedia, are they really going to merge? This podcast is sponsored by Buzzsprout with the tools, support and community to ensure you keep podcasting. Start podcasting, keep podcasting with Buzzsprout.com.
From your daily newsletter, the Pod News Weekly Review.
James, so the big story of the week is iHeart serious about a merger?
Aha, I see what you did there, yes. Yes, the story is theoretically that iHeart and SiriusXM are about to merge. That's what the stories are, apparently.
Not convinced?
Not convinced. What typically tends to happen, so this was initially the subject of a set of reports from Bloomberg, Ashley Carman involved in that, friend of the show, and Lucas, who works with her, not a friend of the show. And he was incredibly rude to me on social media, and I'm not forgetting it. They started reporting stuff. They got some of it wrong, to be fair. It's in talks to merge. It probably isn't going to be a merger. SiriusXM is bigger than iHeartMedia in many ways, and certainly in terms of podcasting, it's certainly bigger than iHeartMedia in many ways. Of course, SiriusXM owns a lot of satellite radio stations in the US. iHeart own a lot of FM and AM radio stations in the US, but of course they also own podcasting stuff, and SiriusXM is probably twice as large, I would guess, than iHeart in terms of the money that they make from podcasting, although that is going to even increase further because of the whole YouTube thing that SiriusXM is about to do. They are about to be selling audio ads for YouTube, so that's exciting. But yes, would be exciting if it happened. I'm not so sure. I think it's there to flush out some conversations with the big shareholders of SiriusXM and, of course, the big shareholders of iHeartMedia as well, I think.
Does this have any implications if it did go ahead for Global?
Yeah, so Global is, who of course is the owner of DAX and Captivate and a lot of radio stations in the UK. Global has been stalking iHeartMedia for a while. So back in 2020, the FCC allowed iHeartMedia to be 100% foreign owned if it wanted to. That's actually a pretty big deal for the US. Now, that hasn't happened yet, but as of right now, so far as I can see, Global owns almost a third of iHeartMedia. And on March the 5th of this year, the FCC allowed an application from iHeartMedia around some ownership of Global shares switching from the Bahamas to the UK, where their investment companies are based. So what does that mean? Well, I mean, it could mean theoretically that Global ends up owning quite a sizable chunk of SiriusXM, so that might be exciting. But it might also be that actually Global would quite like to own all of those radio stations and much more podcasting stuff in the US. So, you know, from that point of view, it's kind of watch this space, I guess.
One of the things that I read was it said that last year, for the first time, more people listened to podcasts daily than talk radio. This was Edison research. Now, you've always said to me that radio's 6 times bigger than podcasting. So how come Edison are reporting it this way?
Well, Edison are reporting two things. So firstly, Edison reporting that podcasts are bigger than talk radio, not bigger than radio, but bigger than talk radio. So that's the first thing that they are talking about. The second thing, in terms of total time spent listening, is that radio is still actually massive. I mean, really, really, really large. Edison's own figures showing that radio is 64% of all of the ad-supported audio that we stick into our ears, 64% in the US. Podcasting, only 20%. Streaming music, by the way, only 10%. So there is a big difference there. Radio is still very, very large. Now that's ad-supported audio. That's from share of ear from Q3 last year. There's similar research that happens in the UK, not from Edison Research, but by a company called Radar, and they have put together figures that isn't ad supported but is total audio. 65%, so 2/3 is live radio, and then podcasts just 10% in those figures. Spotify and Apple Music and stuff like that, 17%. So again, podcasting is large, but live radio is much, much larger. And so clearly, if you own both a ton of live radio stations and also lots of podcasts, then that's quite a exciting thing for an audio advertising business.
Let's move on, James, then. Is Apple getting itself in a jam with spam? It's easy now for Apple Podcasts or people to push spam into Apple Podcasts. What's going on, James?
I am going to ask you, Sam, before I answer that question, are you wearing an anorak this morning?
Oh, yeah, I am. Yeah, sorry. Is it rustling? Yes. Sorry. Let me take it off.
It sounds like you're fighting under some plastic. There you go.
Right, we are rustle-free.
Wonder how much of this I edit out.
Yes.
Wool is the thing. So is Apple under target for spam, or frankly, is all of podcasting under target for spam? And I think, the conversations that I have been having recently, and frankly, the stories that I've been publishing recently, have been pointing out that the amount of spam in the directories is getting out of hand. I mean, I'm looking at the moment at some data from a couple of days ago. 2,100 new podcasts went into the podcast directories a couple of days ago, just in one day. 2,100 new podcasts. Of those, 60% were legitimate podcasts, 1,300. But when you look at the other stuff which is going in there, it's very clear that there is a large amount of spam and even larger amount of AI slopcasts, if you like. So, for example, 25% of all of the shows that were being put into podcast directories in this day that I'm looking at, 25% of them were possibly from AI. It's quite easy to check that. 15% were spam, gambling, and stuff like that. And then you've got another sort of 2% which are there just to promote, things like Temu codes and that sort of thing. So clearly there is an inordinate amount of spam and other stuff going into the directories. And yeah, I'm curious to see what has happened in terms of all of that.
I asked the question, I think I've asked it before, what responsibility do hosts have to stop this spam? I mean, Dave Jones at the Podcast Index has written an API that tracks out these spam and AI slopcasts, but is it Dave's job or is it the host's job not to publish to the Podcast Index and to the Apple and Spotify directories?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both. There are a number of podcast hosting companies out there who are being used because they have free tiers being used to try and get spam into the system. I think that those particular podcast hosts really should be being a little bit more proactive than they currently are. There are a bunch of them. It's very easy to point to Spreaker. Spreaker, of course, are the people that host Inception Point AI, which is a major publisher of slopcasts. 269, 12% of all of the shows in this one day I'm looking at came from Inception Point AI. Massive amount of shows in there. But there are other podcast hosts also involved in this as well. And I think that really all of them should be doing a little bit more to stop all of this stuff from happening.
Dave Jones posted that the latest threat to podcast directories is people reposting free public domain recordings of books from LibriVox. He says that this is Spreaker that's allowing this to happen. I mean, clearly Spreaker are monetizing this, and do they not have a moral duty, or is this just business as usual?
Well, I think Spreaker is the main offender around this because it is mostly Inception Point AI. But Spreaker aren't alone. As I say, there's a company called Jellypod who is doing AI stuff. RSS.com, Buzzsprout are in there as well. Red Circle are in there as well. Decent companies, but they are being used by people, particularly in their free tier, to try publishing all kinds of stuff. The difference, I suppose, is there are two things here. One of the things is people earning money directly from the podcasts. So when you listen to a show from Inception Point AI, for example, you will hear a couple of ads first, followed by the show starting. It's only then that you realize that you're listening to a slopcast and you click away. But Spreaker don't presumably care about that because they'll get 30% of the revenue. But there is also on the other side, people just using this to get links into directories, which will help them in terms of SEO. So if you have a Temu coupon, then you can earn money. If you have Amazon affiliate codes, then you can earn money if you can get as many links to those as possible. And unfortunately, pretty well anybody that is giving out free trials is seeing them being misused in this way.
Now, one of the companies that we talked about doing all of this was a company called Light Knot Studios, which was taking cover art, turning it slightly differently, but trying deliberately to confuse people into thinking they were listening to a different podcast, and then putting their own content behind it. I thought it would be good of us to go to RSS.com's Alberto Betella and find out what is RSS.com doing as a host to try and stop this AI slopcasts. First of all, let's define the problem. What is the problem of AI slop?
I'm glad you said AI slop, because the main problem in the conversation is also the taxonomy we use to define AI-generated podcasts. We cannot put all of them in the same bucket, or the conversation is not gonna progress and move forward. So we have AI podcasts which are curated by humans. Those could be a finance podcast, for instance, where I have a daily briefing taken from an authoritative source like Yahoo Finance and just tells me the movements up and down in the market. It's not the most engaging podcast. It doesn't foster the strongest parasocial relationship with the host because there's no host really, but it can be acceptable and it may do its job. So those could be acceptable. Then we have AI spam. And we had an example with Light Knot Studios a couple of weeks ago. We have spam and copyright infringement or IP infringement. Those are very simple. This is not a problem with AI per se at all. These are taken exactly the same way we address spam and SEO baits in podcasting. These are easy. If we find them, we identify them, we remove them. So given this taxonomy, the third category is AI slop. These are podcasts that are made to seem real, and most of the time they want to exploit monetization systems like programmatic ads. And that's the problem we are facing. They're growing at scale thanks to the democratization of AI tools, the low pricing, and they're very difficult to find because they have professionally designed, apparently, cover arts. The description sounds good, and even the transcripts sometimes cannot give away really what the content is unless you get the whole context. And again, AI slop is dangerous for the ecosystem because AI slop for a true crime podcast can be annoying if there are hallucinations. It can be annoying, but one doesn't listen to it. But AI slop for a health podcast, giving wrong recommendations to people, can be dangerous. So that's the problem we are facing with AI slop. AI slop can be dangerous and can break our ecosystem.
But to play devil's advocate, so let's take something like Inception Point AI. They will tell you that they are human verified, although we know that they aren't because we've seen that. But let's say, give them the benefit of the doubt, let's say that some of them are, or many of them are. Is what they're doing illegal? It might be annoying, we might not like it, but wouldn't we let the market vote with its feet? If no one listens to this AI slop, well, they just die on the vine.
I have a personal opinion here. I don't think what they're doing is illegal per se. There are radio stations with weather forecast 24/7 and they are AI generated. I think it doesn't work when you don't disclose what you're doing and the sources and the methods. Now, James pointed out to some of their shows in a past episode where you get a prompt from an LLM in English in a show that is in Spanish. And that's just bad. It's not dangerous. It was a podcast which was generic. But then when you think about, again, categories like health or psychology, these becomes dangerous. And especially when you create these personas which are called Dr. XYZ. That's exactly what can be dangerous. This is what I believe could be considered illegal in some jurisdictions. I didn't analyze. The problem is that AI slop is not binary. If it was binary, we would have already solved it, true or false. AI slop is a spectrum. If I have an English prompt read in a Spanish podcast talking about, I don't know, golf, fine, it's just annoying, again. If it's about some sensitive category, sensitive recommendations, sensitive topics, that can really bleed into a big danger. And the problem is that it's not easy to put everything in one bucket.
So Light Not Studios was a company that was hosting with RSS.com. They were using your programmatic advertising to monetize. And once you were made aware, you removed them from the platform. They're probably with somebody else right now. I don't know. We probably should check. But Spreaker are well aware that they are hosting Inception Point AI. They're putting out 200 to 300 new podcasts, not episodes, podcasts every day. And now Dave Jones from the Podcast Index has said Spreaker is also allowing LibriVox, which is audiobooks, to be reposted via Spreaker to the Podcast Index in order to monetize through advertising. So do hosts have a duty of responsibility? RSS.com clearly took action. But should something like Spreaker take action and say, okay, this isn't acceptable to the ecosystem and remove Inception Point AI? Or are they making enough money from it that they'd rather not take any action?
So again, getting back to the taxonomy, I wouldn't put Inception Point with Light Not Studio in the same bucket. Light Not Studio was hosted by RSS.com, and as soon as we were told there were some podcasts which were copycats, basically, of others, they were exploiting the intellectual properties of others, that bucket was AI spam, AI IP infringement. So that was the easy bucket. Okay, that's easy, that's clear, there's nothing to discuss here. Whereas I guess the conundrum from the Spreaker side, which I don't know personally in terms of, I don't know their internal conversation. They are friends. I mean, it's a company we respect. But you know what? AI slop is not well defined. And one thing I've been reflecting on recently is also, if a podcast is not great in quality, but is not dangerous, and if it has real human listeners, do advertisers care if their advertisement ends up in those podcasts? I don't know. And I bet most advertisers or some advertisers do not care. And this is why, this is the whole problem. I think the first step that we took at RSS.com, but Spreaker took before us, was creating an AI disclosure. At the end of 2025, they added elements to their UI, Spreaker, to disclose the use of AI. It's voluntary. We did it in March 2026. We went a step further, so we added this signal in the RSS feed. And a few days later, Spreaker followed as well. So what I think, because I cannot speak for them, is that they are working on it as well. And as of now, having this, it's not the end, it's not the solution at all, but it's a great step towards being able to address more efficiently and effectively the problem.
So it's a bit like the explicit tag, really. It's created decisions on whether they want to self-report that the content is AI or the host is AI. A lot of people are saying if the content was generated, like the research element of it, then you shouldn't declare it. It's whether the host is a spoken AI character. That's when people would want to know that there was an AI disclosure on it. Now, Apple Podcasts also requires a disclosure, but there's no policing of that either from Apple. Should it be less a voluntary disclosure and more a mandatory disclosure?
Well, that's the point. The disclosure is voluntary in the sense that you have an element when you are uploading an episode where you can specify whether the podcast contains elements of AI. We'll get there later. You need some guidelines there because elements can be anything. But the voluntary disclosures paired to internal policies at Apple, for example, in platforms or even institutions, can become mandatory because if you are in breach with Apple terms of service because you didn't disclose, then they can act. So the nuance of non-disclosing, once there is a disclosure and you are required to do that, even if it's voluntary, if you don't do that, then you are in breach. So there could be an action taken. That's where I think the detail is very important. So an episode which is generated by AI that should be disclosed, like AI voice, AI script, no curation, it's in English or it's in Spanish and you get English prompts from an LLM, that is made by AI. If you don't disclose, someone removes the episode, and I think they have the right to do so, depending on the platform service and terms and conditions.
Now, the EU is about to implement Article 50 in August 2026. It's going to put fines of up to 15 million euros or 3% of your global turnover. What is this new EU AI Act?
Yes, August 2nd, 2026, I think, and it's about disclosing AI when it's used to create matters of public interest, so communication that are of public interest. And here, the medium of podcasting fits perfectly in most of the cases. So disclosure as a starting point, it can be a simple yes, no disclosure initially, is perfect because it also helps going towards and being future-proofs with this regulation, both from platforms like Apple Podcasts and institutions, organizations, and even, jurisdictions, in this case, the EU AI Act. So as a hosting company, at the moment, Spreaker and RSS.com have the disclosure in RSS feeds. Together, based on Livewire stats last month, we have 15% of the new episode market share. It's a decent amount. If more hosting companies join, this is a great step forward. Also to become part of the infrastructures that facilitates this compliance with regulation, because it's all about transparency in terms of step one. Step one is transparency, then we can take it further. And if we don't foster disclosure, how can we prove to the EU, for example, that we are compliant with the regulation if we don't allow an easy disclosure to our podcasters? That's why my appeal to the industry is that we should all have a disclosure in the RSS feed. It doesn't have to work exactly as we do. It could be a starting point. We can change, but that's crucial to go to the next level.
Talking of the next level, you created a website called shouldidisclose.ai. What's that framework?
It's so one context here is that I have a background in AI. I have a PhD in a field called affective computing. Today is called emotion AI, which means in academia, I was exposed to AI conversation early on. And after that, I was in a big corporate, in a moonshot factory, which is an R&D, long-term disruptive technology where AI is at the core. So years ago, we were working on AI ethics. We had consultants on the topic. What I'm saying is that I was exposed in a previous life. And so when I joined full-time the podcasting industry, I always thought that was a past life, nothing to do with podcasting. But recently, I hope that what I learned there can help giving some example to foster new conversations. So I like to be very simple sometimes in my approach, which doesn't mean it's simple doesn't mean necessarily that something that takes little time. Simplicity is complex. So I try to be simple and be concrete. So I created a framework where you can answer to a questionnaire and it helps you, it guides you on whether you should disclose or not the use of AI. And I called that the substance test. when Apple Podcasts, that a material portion of AI usage require disclosure, I try to go the next level, as we were saying. The next level is what does it mean? So if you use AI to improve your audio for transcripts, for some background music, or even for an intro like Pod News Weekly Review, which is not even 1% of the episode time, you don't need disclosure because the substance, so the reason why the listener is there listening to the podcast is made by humans. So that's very important. I tried to come up with a framework, which I didn't make up. I read all the regulations. I compiled a table with all possible use cases and edge cases, and that's a start. I don't expect it to be a standard, but I would love for more people to do something similar, to adopt mine, to change it, and it's Creative Commons. I just wanted... Many people are barking in this period, They're just saying, that's the problem, we have to solve it, it's about money and advertisement. But really, if we disclose, we follow regulations, and we together as an industry go towards the same direction, this is a problem that can be solved, really. And I try to be as pragmatic as possible. So there is a website, shouldidisclose.ai, and that's a questionnaire with the explanation of the rationale behind the questionnaire. You may like it, you may not agree. It's a start. Build your own, take mine, but I just wanted to be pragmatic and offer some ideas to the industry.
Yeah, we in TrueFans, I'm the CEO of TrueFans as well, in our hosting side, we've added a link to shouldidisclose.ai right next to the AI tag, so that if someone's not sure whether they should or shouldn't, they can click on the link, complete your test, and then make their own decision. I think once you start to get fines appearing and it starts to become much more mandatory rather than voluntary, I think people will start to make sure and check. Now, if we don't address this, if we don't come across a industry-wide solution to deal with AI slopcast,
well, for sure we are going to lose trust. And when I say trust, it's trust from the listeners in the first place, which is the target. They are the people we work for, we strive for, but also advertisers. So by disclosing as a first step, again, that's not the solution, it's a step. By disclosing, we foster transparency. By doing so, we give a choice. We give a choice to apps that read this signal to do something with it. They can filter out some podcasts. They can simply label them. They can do nothing but be aware of the ratio of AI podcasts they are proposing in their algorithms, in their highlights. And to advertisers, we can just give the signal where advertisers that don't care about being in an AI podcast, as long as the listeners are human, they just ignore it. Advertisers that care because of brand awareness and whatever reason, they can opt out. So that's what I'm saying. If we don't do anything, we are going to lose trust from the listeners and the advertiser, which is everything our industry strives for. Therefore, I think disclosure, it's really what we need to do as a starting point.
I think also all hosts should be supporting the AI tag that you proposed. It's a simple one using the TXT tag. I think all apps should then be able to read that tag and then make a clear indication in their UI to somebody that this podcast contains AI voices. So I think those are the two things. I know Russell at Pod2 has also recommended a sliding scale, because at the moment the way that AI is sort of marked is yes or no, which is on or off. It's very black or white. And so he's suggested that, as you said, Pod News Weekly Review has AI in it. We have voiceovers and announcers and various bits in sections, but the core, as you described, is not for AI. We're not asking people to come to an AI podcast. And what he was suggesting is with transcripts, maybe we can use those to set a percentage marker, which then also gives the user an acceptability. So you might accept, I don't know, having 30 or 40% of a podcast with AI. I might accept 50 or 60%. Somebody might accept more or less. We're not all the same. So Russell at Pod2 is suggesting maybe a scale of AI so that we aren't just doing a simple, oh, it's got a little bit of AI, that's it. You have to mark that. Any thoughts on that?
Yes, before coming out with our AI elements, which are basically yes, no, or I don't disclose, I don't say anything, which is also a signal. If I don't say anything and it's a no, or it's, let's say, an explicit no is an explicit no. I reviewed and followed and read again, once again, over 1 year of conversations in the podcast standard projects, in the podcast index GitHub. And of course, Russell idea makes sense, but let me wear for a moment my scientist hat. As someone that conducted experiments, had to publish a peer-reviewed paper being criticized, and by iterating had to, improve their methods in research, in science, I don't exclude the use of a scale in the future. But it's much harder to standardize a scale and how you measure the scale than having a simple binary value as the start. So what in statistics, this is called normalization. The way you collect the scale in TrueFence or in RSS.com, even the slider width, it can influence the rating. So if my ratings are skewed towards the upper quartile, for example, and yours are the third quartile, just because your slider is vertical, mine is horizontal, and this is stuff I've seen in experiments, I reviewed also papers for years, it was my job. It's not gonna work. So absolutely, we can follow Russell's idea of building a scale. But we are looking at the moon, and we need a rocket ship. We don't even have a bike now. And maybe the bike is the binary disclosure. Maybe that's even a motorbike. And that's what I'm trying to explain. Like, really, professionally, as a former scientist, the easiest approach is the one that works. And then we can take it from there. In the future, we can even say which percentage of AI I used to create the script and what agent I used. We can, but we have to start somewhere, and somewhere is having a bike, not a rocket ship.
So the London podcast show is coming up, Alberto, and you and Ben are coming over to the show, which is great news. I'm sure there will be a podcast standards project meeting. We had one at every previous podcast movement and London podcast show. Last year, the topic was all about video and HLS, and look where we are today. I suspect the topic at this year will be very heavily about AI slop. So I look forward to having a longer conversation, not just with you, but I guess with the rest of the industry as well, to see if there's any other ideas we can all come up with.
Likewise, I'm very much looking forward to it.
If anyone wants to know more about what you guys at RSS.com are doing regarding AI and AI slop and how you're monitoring it, where would they go?
Well, shouldidisclose.ai has a page that explains the framework. And at the very bottom, there is an article I wrote which explains the narrative, but from the regulatory point of view, it's a bit more verbose, but useful. So that's a nice article to start from.
Brilliant. Alberto, my friend, it's always good to see you and hear from you. And I look forward to seeing you in London for a lovely glass of something.
Likewise. Looking forward in 3 weeks, I guess.
Yes. See you soon, friend.
See you soon.
Take care, Alberto. Thanks.
Bye.
Alberto Betella from RSS.com. I have questions into Apple Podcasts because I would like to understand quite what they are wanting in terms of disclosure of AI. I've pointed a few shows to Apple Podcasts which aren't following the AI disclosure guidelines, but also it's not particularly clear. For an Inception Point AI slopcast, for example, the main show description does not prominently say, in fact, it does not say at all that it is made using AI, but more to the point, made in conjunction with artificial intelligence, which is what they write in each individual episode, is not necessarily explaining that this has been made wholly with AI and a human being has not checked this before it has got published, which is what Inception Point AI have said. Perhaps this is something where the industry really ought to be working together.
I'm looking forward to the response from Apple, James. Let's see what they say.
Indeed.
Because it's in their, as you said, it's in their terms and conditions, isn't it? So
yeah, it's in their terms and conditions. I mean, I've reported using the Apple Podcasts report tool. I've reported one of the shows where there is no mention in the audio that this is AI, and I've reported one of those shows there. That was more than 24 hours ago. still waiting for that. I reported it not using my email address, but a different email address that I can read, because I know that Apple are monitoring everything that I do. If there is anybody from Apple listening, which there is, please do not pull off my arms and legs.
Look, we talked about it the other day. Apple are transcribing every podcast. They will know if the content of that podcast contains AI, as Alberto told us. They could adopt the AI tag, like the explicit tag, and auto set that on. I'm not sure they'll go that far, but they have it within their realm to know what is AI and what isn't, because they are transcribing everything.
Yeah, I mean, they are. Whether or not that transcription, of course, is enough to actually work out whether something is AI or not, I don't know. But I'm not disparaging at all here. But if there is one guy who also owns chickens and works at an accountancy firm in the heart of Alabama who has managed to fix this, then I think probably the most valuable company in the world should probably be able to fix this too. So let's hope that Apple have a plan in place for all of this, because it is a real concern. If you are an independent content producer, you are being swamped by these slopcasts and by people that frankly don't care about you, they don't care about the audience, they don't care about anything other than, can we make another £2.20 by fooling people that this is a real human being? Or even worse, by calling someone a doctor, a spam voice, but calling them a doctor and giving medical advice, which may or may not have even been checked by a human being. Terrifying, absolutely terrifying. There is a session, by the way, at the podcast show in London, which will be going into AI a little bit more. Janine Wright will be there from the Slopcast company, Inception Point AI. There'll be somebody from the BBC there as well, Nikki Birch, who has been working on their AI stuff. There will be a moderator there as well. No, thank you. That's not going to be me. But that will be certainly one-to-one.
I'm going to that one for certain.
Absolutely. I think there'll be a queue out of the door for that. So I'm looking forward to all of that.
Moving on then, James. Spotify, James, they just released their Q1 financial report. How was it?
They have, yes. On the face of it, lots of good news. Some interesting news, but lots of good news. So in terms of monthly active users, they've added 12% year on year. They've added 9% of paying subscribers. So that is all good. A few interesting things if you look at Spotify in terms of ads. So auction-based revenue, so that's things like the Spotify Ad Exchange and Spotify Ads Manager. That is now nearing 25% of all ad revenue. So all ad revenue has never been that high in terms of this automatic stuff. It's been stuff which has been sold directly. So that's a big deal. Having said that, their ad revenue is cratering. Down 5% year on year, down 25% quarter on quarter. Now, I know that the last quarter is always the biggest quarter in terms of ad revenue, but even so, down 25% quarter on quarter. So I think it does show that Spotify's ads business is still in trouble. I hear lots of stories about how Spotify ads money is much, much less now than it ever has been for podcasters who are on that particular platform. But I can never get anybody to actually speak on the record on that. So I can never actually write a story on that. But the way that I saw it in their slides, profit from ads is just 8% of total profit for the entire company. So the ads business is not. So firstly, the ads stuff in Spotify is half as profitable as premium revenue. So already it's a less profitable thing, but it's also tiny in comparison to everything else. So I was interested in seeing that, but that may well go towards the reason why shares fell 14%. They gave out a disappointing income forecast, which the stock market didn't like. But maybe there are people also taking a look at these figures and going, well, hang on a minute. If you are a ad-supported company, which you have been in a while, why is that amount of money cratering? And I'm not sure that anybody's got the answer.
Yeah, I think they need to look at how they can justify the increase in costs. They need to also look at where they can get new users from, because again, if they've saturated the market with music users and maybe podcasts, I mean, the Spotify audio book service is not having much impact. According to the report here, it says it's less than 5% of listening on the service, which is a quarter of podcasting. So, the big push into audiobooks hasn't really worked. So you will see a slowdown, I think, in active users if they don't find new ways of bringing subscribers onto the platform.
Yeah, which is the interesting thing, because actually this is data, by the way, from Sweden. It's from a company called MediaVision, but there's nothing to suggest that Sweden is any different to anywhere else. And they say that music is 75% of total time on the service. Audiobooks are 5% of the service. So that means that podcasting is only 20% of total time spent on Spotify. So for all of this talk about how big Spotify is in terms of podcasting, well, it's tiny in comparison to music, isn't it? Which is interesting to see.
Now, one of the things they've never broken out is also the video revenue that they hand out to creators. We're still waiting on them to do that. But Libsyn has just announced that they are now going to be distributing video to Spotify, so maybe this will help. What are Libsyn doing, James?
Well, so Libsyn are using the Spotify distribution API. That was announced in January and is already in use in quite a few different podcast hosting companies, including Transistor. But Libsyn have just turned this on for anyone spending more than $25 a month. Of course, all Libsyn customers can still upload manually on Spotify's website. They also say that they offer video functionality for everybody. Now, what that means is actually that it's MP4 video episodes. So those are the old-fashioned videos that Apple Podcasts deals with and Pocket Casts deals with and many other people deal with as well. Those are the things that Libsyn has. Now, when I covered this story, the only information that was available to me on the Libsyn website was the amount of monthly storage for uploads, which is tiny, tiny, tiny if you're talking about video. So, 540 megabytes for the $25 a month plan. This is storage space, not traffic, which is the way that TrueFans charge, but just storage space. 540 meg is not going to be a large amount. Now, I saw that and I said, well, that doesn't seem, that doesn't seem an awful lot of money. Anyway, Libsyn have now told me that all Libsyn creators can now upload up to 100 gigabytes of storage a month for video files. Not for audio files. So for audio files, you're still stuck. If you're on the $8 plan, you're still stuck with 162 megabytes. For video files, though, 100 gigabytes. Weird.
I'm sorry. Has somebody just got a marker pen and gone stick a zero on the end of this by mistake? Because, how'd you go from 540 meg to 100 gig?
Well, a spokesperson told us it's really important to us that our creators can lean into video in a way that makes sense for their show without overly restrictive limitations. I would just say 100 gigabytes of storage per month for video, but only 162 meg for audio or 540 meg. So Libsyn is basically going, we're a video company now. We don't care about audio. We're not going to give you enough space for audio. We're going to give you all the space in the world for video. That's absolutely fine. What a weird thing to do. What a weird thing
Well,
to
do. we know they've become a ad company. I think they're trying to mirror Acast in many ways. They're not. They were like Buzzsprout and RSS.com and Blueberry, much more of a hosting company. Now they've become much more of an ad platform and a video company, looks like, and which is really where Acast is heading as well.
Well, why not just turn around and say, we're going to give everybody 100 gig of storage per month? Everybody.
Yeah. It doesn't matter what you upload then.
I don't understand why video gets a free pass, but audio, no, you still have to work out. And let's not forget, by the way, that Libsyn's terms and conditions let them push you onto the Pro plan. Now, the Pro plan charges you for bandwidth. It's an expensive but professional hosting service for enterprises. Libsyn's terms and conditions let them push you onto that Pro plan without any notice and for any reason.
That's wrong.
So if they want to, there's no upper limit. They can just basically turn around and say, "Oh no, you owe us additional money now." I was wondering why Brendan Monahan, who has been doing the media rounds, he's written for Inc., I think, this week. He's been on Podbiz. He's been on the New Media Show. I did wonder why they hadn't contacted us, and now I've realised why.
Well, you'd ask them serious questions.
And I was listening to, I don't know whether you heard the New Media Show with Brendan that Rob put out earlier on in the week.
Bits and pieces of it. I didn't listen to all of it, no.
Yeah, so in the middle of it, Rob starts talking about the alternate enclosure tag, and Brendan Monahan just says, "Oh, well, you're at the limit of my technical knowledge now."
Excellent.
And then I had to check who said this, because in the transcript it said it was talking about podcasting 2.0, and I thought, oh yeah, podcasting 2.0. Well, this will be interesting seeing. Someone said that podcasting 2.0 is a fringe idea that is not going anywhere, and I thought, what a thing for Brendan to say. And then I went to have a listen to it, and it's Rob Greenlee saying that podcasting 2.0 is a fringe idea that's not going anywhere.
Wow.
There's been a lot of criticism that was pointed at RSS for many years that it wasn't innovating and it wasn't improving, and it wasn't getting better. And, this was a criticism that was well known that came out of, some of the early leaders at Anchor, with the hosting platform about RSS, is that it wasn't innovating, right? And that we can do it better through our own proprietary platform. And so the industry spun up, this whole movement around the RSS 2.0 project and the podcast standards group project, and started coming up with some new ideas for RSS to extend the namespace of sorts and to add capabilities. But the industry's been a little slow to adopt those ideas.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of reasons for that are fair and that really fundamentally get back to, well, will the big platforms support these changes? Will Apple embrace alternative enclosures? Will Apple embrace, sharing comments across platforms? Will, all these kind of more advanced capabilities that RSS could do if we all chose to.
Yeah.
But for some reason we haven't. I know, like, this show has an alternative enclosure in it because some of the podcast listening apps do support alternative enclosures, which means that in my video feed, I can have a link to the audio file. And in the audio feed, I can link to the video file. But then you look at what Apple is doing now with the HLS streaming stuff, where they're basically taking the audio track from the video and making that the audio experience.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on that tension there of capability and how that might impact the audio side?
Yeah, you're starting to get at the extent of my technical knowledge here, Rob.
That's okay. It's all right.
But no, I think honestly, the question I have is, how is each platform controlling that distribution mechanism to drive where people actually listen and consume? And what is the driving force behind walled garden, expansive perspective?
Right.
And I always like to, my perspective in general is that the broader market tends to go towards open in general. But as you point out in this question, that's not where everyone's headed. So how do we balance that? I don't have a good answer.
And is it okay? That's the other thing too. If you're a smaller app developer and you built, like a Fountain or some of these smaller podcast consumption apps that are out there that are trying to differentiate themselves in the market to grow market share as a competitive platform to the big guys, right? Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. Well, the only pathway to really do that, I guess, is to somewhat create a better mousetrap of sorts, right? Create a more expansive and new type of experience in their apps. That is the power of these RSS tag extensions that are available to them, and a lot of them are embracing that. But the broader industry of podcasting has not, and it's because we've been really driven by whatever Apple chooses to do is what the industry does.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and I think as you're pointing out, and we're seeing the manner of which people are consuming this content and the breadth of platforms that are out there, Spotify, Netflix, YouTube, et cetera, is maybe lightening that influence to the point where people are consuming in the manners they want and the places they want. And Apple, Spotify, et cetera, have to decide how much they're willing to compromise on things that they've said in the past are a firm line. And ultimately, I'm a big believer in the market deciding where these things go. And some of that translates into, are people going to use an alternative third-party app, or are they too married to, hey, this is where I get my music, this is where I get my podcast, this is where I get my audiobooks, this is where, I do all of that activity. And what's in it for that ultimate, technology platform.
Yeah, I think that is really at the core of why these kind of newer type of techniques and things that could be available inside of RSS have not happened, is because we do tend to gravitate towards platforms and the influence of those platforms to drive audience and to drive engagement, and that all benefits the whole ecosystem. These fringe ideas and things like that don't always catch momentum because they came from those ideas came from somewhere else. They didn't come from the big platforms. So
can I just point out chapters, transcripts, and Apple?
I know.
just thought I'd just put that in there. Just a little caveat. Chapters,
transcripts, and actually, when you look at Pocket Casts, which is not a small thing, which is not going anywhere, they support all kinds of additional stuff in there as well.
Overcast even joined the game.
Yeah, indeed, and the pod roll and everything else. But unfortunately, if that's the way that podcasting 2.0 is being seen, so depressing to end up seeing that. So so all
how big was no go on how big was the video for that show?
Oh yes, the video for that show, because I did take a look, was 3.1 gig.
Right.
So if you wanted to download, and it's only an hour, so it's 48 megabytes a minute. It's massive. I did take a look at This Week in Tech, which is twice as long, the same resolution, 1080p, and it was half the size. so I'm not quite sure what's going on there. But of course, they get that, the New Media Show gets that bandwidth free from Blueberry anyway. I think from my point of view, an MP4 download, you've got a number of issues there. Firstly, yes, the cost of your bandwidth, but also the cost of loading time for audiences, the cost of the available storage on your viewer's device as well, and even, frankly, the screen that they're watching on. So I think if you're producing video, absolutely produce it in 4K, make it lovely and excellent for Apple Podcasts, make it lovely and excellent in 4K for YouTube, absolutely fine. For Spotify, absolutely fine. But if you're producing an MP4 download that gets downloaded onto your audience's devices, I think probably 4K or even 1080p is a bit too big. And I will probably have a look at something which is 720p, transcoding your AAC audio down to 128 rather than whatever the default will be, probably 320k. All of that kind of stuff is probably important. But 3.1 gig is just a bit rude, isn't it? Just to sort of drop on somebody's machine. Yeah.
Just to throw it in there as the CEO of True Fans, we stream the MP4, so we don't download it, and we do 720, 120K audio stereo. And so, I mean, I think, if someone's downloading 3 gig onto my phone, I'm not going to be very happy. Anyway, let's move on. James, just a little story you had in Pod News Daily, and I just thought it's an arrow of direction. I just wanted to look at it. Red Seat Ventures, we've been talking about. We interviewed Supercast CEO recently.
Yeah,
after their
Jason
acquisition.
Shuhoi. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. And we talked last week about them buying a hosting company, and it looks like they've announced a multi-year partnership with a live comedy company called Kill Tony. It's interesting. They're going to have ad-free versions using Supercast. They're going to have video in Tubi, which is also one of their platforms. And I just feel that this is the story being pulled together now. So it's an arrow of direction. I just think we just need to watch. Red Seat Ventures pulling a client and a hosting company, and now pulling in content as well.
Yeah, they are doing something very interesting, and they've clearly got a wide range of products that they wish to help monetize. So the fact that the press release mentioned Supercast directly, the fact that they have mentioned additional shows and all of that is really interesting. That's most definitely a way forward and a line there. And I think it's interesting seeing that alongside the New Heights podcast, which, of course, as you know, is a sports ball podcast with the Kelsey brothers. They are doing a live show in LA, for example, in the opening week of the 2026 FIFA World Cup. That's proper sport. So that's going to be interesting. But I think that shows, again, that, Amazon, they are there doing live shows. They're there with their fancy website selling New Heights branded coffee mugs or whatever it might be. And so there are a lot of people doing as much monetization as they possibly can from the IP that they own. And that's really coming out with these two announcements, I think.
Let's whiz around the world. Let's go off to Africa first and Nigeria. There's 233 million people living in Nigeria, so podcasting could be a massive opportunity in the country. What's this one about?
Yeah, so this is somebody who we've had on the show, Tony Doe, Tony Onwuchekwa, who has written for Pod News about Nigerian podcasts. 88% of them are in English, but almost a third have either pod faded or are on pause. It's a really good article. It's part of the bit of Pod News where we look at other podcast marketplaces. And it is a fascinating article. I would heartily recommend it. You'll find that at podnews.net/articles, talking about other places in the world. Ivox. I thought it was pronounced iVoox. It turns out Ivox. And how do I know this? Because I've seen the TV ad for them.
Nada de O. Ivox, el mayor catálogo de podcast en español.
So Ivox is a Spanish language podcast app. They have produced a rather lovely TV ad, which is running across Spain on the TV. I added English language captions to that and chucked it up on the website, complete with coloured captions. I thought I was doing very well there.
Very nice, yes.
I would like to say, can you see what Ivox is doing? They've just done a TV ad for a podcast app. Apple, can you see what they're doing there? They're trying to grow the business by doing a TV ad for a podcast app. Apple, would you like to do that, being the richest company in the world? TV ad for a podcast app? Thanks very much.
Ivox, donde vive el podcast.
I'll take a bet with you now, James, that there will be no mention in WWDC about podcasting.
Well, there's a bet. When's WWDC?
June.
I won't.
Yes.
I won't be seeing you quickly after that, will I? That's a shame. Yes. Well, yes. Who knows? Who knows? Anyway, a TV ad for a podcast app. Yes. Who'd have thought it?
You could star in it.
Who'd have thought it? Also, Apple run, Apple TV. They don't do ads on Apple TV, do they? Amazon do ads on Amazon Prime Video. And Amazon also have Amazon Music, which is a very capable podcast app that not very many people know about. We watch stuff on Amazon Prime Video. We were watching The Night Manager. It's got some ads in there. Why not an ad for the Apple Music app that talks about podcasts?
On Amazon.
Yeah.
I don't think they'll let that through.
On Amazon, the Amazon Music app on Amazon, that would be free for everyone. Why not? Takes notes for meeting in a couple of weeks' time. So there we are. So that's going on in Spain. More Americans than ever are listening to podcasts. This is new research from S&P Global. Not quite sure why they've bothered, but anyway, usage by the population is up 10% year on year, according to the data. Apparently, it's because of the rising popularity of video, which is nice. There's also more data coming out in the next couple of months, more globally as well, which I'm looking forward to covering here on this very podcast. And there's a company called First Story, which is one of those companies that are supporting Apple Podcast Video. I mentioned to you when they were announced that I had no idea who they were. It turns out that they are a hosting platform in Asia Pacific, which I frankly should have known about. So there we are. But they are going to be the first to support Apple Podcast Video in this part of the world, which is nice. And again, this is a coming soon thing, but hopefully we will see that soon. Talking about coming soon, Captivate say that they will be rolling out Apple Podcast Video from next week, which is exciting, isn't it? Talking about the UK, Bauer Media Audio have done some research, which they've not shared, but they've shared a press release, which is always nice. Basically, it says that there are tons of people who really like audio across Europe. 47% of advertisers intend to increase their podcast investment. 82% say that podcasts reach highly engaged audiences. Bauer Media, in case you've not heard of them, they own a bunch of radio companies and podcast companies in many European countries, including Poland and Norway, the UK, Ireland, Portugal, and many other places. So they're a pretty big deal, really. Congratulations to Stephen Bartlett, Diary of a CEO, hitting 16 million subscribers on YouTube. This month they had 90 million downloads and views, which is a new record. They've added 600,000 new subscribers to the show. Would be nice, wouldn't it, if there were subscriber numbers for podcasting as well. But of course, RSS means that we can't do that, which is a bit of a shame, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
But there we are. And Girlhanger, many congratulations to them. They've been named Audio and Podcast winner at the Campaign UK Media Company of the Year Awards 2026. So congratulations to them for that. Remember when they used to talk to us?
Yes. When they were a scrappy up-and-coming company.
When they were smaller, they used to talk to us. Yeah,
when we're not at the bottom of the pile. Yeah.
There we go.
Yes.
And then finally, the BBC, this is brilliant, and you should go and watch this, especially for fans of Adam Curry. I know there are some out there. But the BBC have just reposted an archive TV clip. It's from a TV show called The Culture Show in November 2004. We've added it if you want to see it, podnews.net/articles. You'll find the history section in there, and the history of podcasts in the UK page now has this. It's brilliant. It's about probably 2 months after podcasting was invented. It contains an interview with Adam Curry, who brilliantly and for no reason at all arrives in a helicopter and then welcomes the BBC journalists with, "Welcome to Curry Castle."
I've come to Belgium to meet web millionaire and podcasting daddy, Adam Curry.
How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Welcome to Curry Castle.
Thank you.
And then walks in and sits in this ostentatious room and pretends to do his show by shouting at his MacBook. He's clearly not doing a show, but he pretends to do a show. It's just brilliant. So you should definitely watch that. There is also a man with yellow teeth who is worried about people skipping the ads. So some things never change, but it's a brilliant video. You should heartily watch that, hidden away in our History of Podcasts in the UK page.
They say never meet your heroes, but I do hope to meet Adam Curry one day. And Adam, come to the London podcast show. You've still got time to book a flight.
Have you not met, really? Oh, you must have. Yeah, you weren't at the two... Yes, you weren't at the two podcast movements. Well, somebody will have to lure him over. But yeah, it's not far away from wherever Curry Castle was. So you should, because Curry Castle was in Flanders. Right. It said, so that can't be right. It can't be Flanders. That's Belgium. Adam wouldn't have lived in Belgium, would he?
No, he was a Dutch boy.
Yeah, exactly. I keep on. Whenever I mention Adam Curry on this show, there's an inner voice in my head, and it's the very considered, wise voice of Stephen Goldstein from Amplify Media, saying, "I really like your show, James, but I wish you'd stop talking about Adam Curry." Okay.
Moving on then.
And in terms of events, there's Netflix is a Joke Fest, which is running at the beginning of May in Los Angeles. If you want to work out in terms of live podcast recordings what's going on there, Great Pods has just published a full list, which is really good and well worth recommended. And the podcast show 2026, of course, which is in May the 20th to the 21st in the UK. And I will be there. Sam will be there. All manner of exciting people will be there. Now, if you are a power supporter, please drop us an email weekly@podnews.net. We will tell you where the drinks are. And that's for power supporters. If you are a power supporter, Rachel Corbett's already coming. Then weekly@podnews.net is our email address, and we will tell you exactly where our drinks are. You'll be more than welcome. It's on Tuesday afternoon at a secret location somewhere in central London, and that's all that we'll say.
Yes. Keep
easy
it
to
there.
guess.
But it is sponsored by our sponsor, Buzzsprout. So
yes. And we should thank them for that. And I did enjoy managing to get Start Podcasting, Keep Podcasting into a story yesterday as well. So I thought that was very good. So many thanks to Buzzsprout for that.
And we've also got a sponsor for our live show as well.
Oh, yes. Go on then. Tell us that. Have they said yes?
Yes, Flightpath are going to be bringing beers to our live show. So, yes, looking forward to doing that as well. So those people coming along to the live version of this show at the London Podcast Show, there will be beers as you walk in. And, yes.
Excellent. We are in a room which is not very big, as ever. So be there nice and early, otherwise you're not getting in. So there you go.
And you're going to get one beer to share, so don't spend it all at once. No, I'm joking.
Yes, and thank you to Flightpath. Thank you to Sean Howard and the rest of the team there. That's really cool.
The tech stuff on the Pod News Weekly Review.
Yes, it's the stuff you'll find every Monday in the Pod News newsletter. Here's where Sam talks technology. What have you got for us, Sam, this week?
Well, James, you've been a bit sort of geeky and very cool this week. You put a little report in Pod News Daily about something called agents.md. I was like, I'd never heard of this. I was like, wow, what's James up to? So what is agents.md and what does it do for you?
Yes, well, agents.md is a file that you put in your, GitHub repository or something, and it tells AI agents looking at the code how it all works and stuff like that. And I just thought to myself, well, I wonder if people are looking for that. I wonder if agents are looking for that on websites. And it turns out that agents are, but agents are also looking for a file called llms.txt. So llms.txt, if you visit that, podnews.net/llms.txt, then you will see a piece of Markdown, which is instructions for an AI agent to go and have a look around the Pod News website. What you can do, what you can't do, please could you do this, please could you not do that? And I thought, what a waste of time this is going to be, but I thought it was worthwhile giving it a go. Anyway, it turns out that there have been agents already looking for llms.txt on the website. And of course, there wasn't anything there, but they were still having a look just in case. So now there is something there basically saying, don't use our directory and all that kind of stuff. So that's going to be really good. So I'm just curious to see whether or not it has any effect on what the AI agents are going to do when they're hammering our website, as they have a tendency of doing.
I assume this is very similar to robots.txt, which Google used to use or look out for when they were doing scraping of websites and SEO.
Yeah, exactly. And Google still uses that, and lots of other people use that. I mean, frankly, agents also ought to be using that, but they're not. So it's kind of a similar thing, but it just basically explains to an agent what they should be doing. But it's been really interesting sort of diving into this, because I have been working quite hard on working out, well, why all of a sudden am I being charged an additional $7 a day for some of the content that I have? I don't really understand why that is. And then digging into some of the stats, it turns out that Amazon has now put a new report onto the Amazon website, which shows you which bots are using your website and which of those are AI and which of those are just SEO or search engines and stuff like that. So, for example, for the Pod News website, I can tell you over the last couple of weeks that basically 30%, a third of all of our traffic is AI bots, a third of it. And when you then have a look at our images server, which is a different server, then again, you're seeing a large amount, 31 out of 56, which is what, 50% or so, is all AI traffic. So there's a lot of AI stuff out there that's really hammering our site, and I know hammering the Podcast Index's site and various other sites as well. So quite interesting to end up seeing that.
Yeah, I'm glad we built an AI bot blocker for our hosted service. So people who can see all the streaming AI bots, and then they can go, yeah, don't want you, don't want you, don't want you. And we put a little description of what they are. So, just in case somebody presses the wrong one, they can always unpress it. But, again, I was shocked, genuinely shocked, when we looked at the statistics of all the data coming through of how many bots were scraping. The numbers were enormous. Now, talking about AI and platforms, Spotify says it's integrated with Claude to deliver personalized audio discovery. So the idea is that you can ask for podcast suggestions for a commute. You can use this if you're both free or premium on the platform, and they've integrated it to include Spotify Connect functionality. So I don't know if anyone's going to use Claude to do this, but it's very similar to what they did with playlists and prompts, I suppose. Any thoughts for you, James, on this?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that a few people are going to do that, but really, at the end of the day, just go to Spotify and use that service. They've got enough AI stuff anyway. I think the interesting thing is seeing. So this is, if I understand this correctly, this is an MCP. So this is something that you actually connect Claude or your AI bot to. The thing that I have found very interesting is that Fastmail and another email service just this week have also announced MCPs that allow your AI bot to do certain things with your email, but not other things with your email. And that is very interesting to me, to actually give an AI agent access to my email to work out what to do with that. It might not be able to reply. It might not be able to delete anything, but it might be able to categorize them or, edit them or however it works. So I find that fascinating. And, clearly, if Spotify want to end up doing that, there was a a podcast hosting company. It's Beehive. They have just launched an MCP as well. So Beehive, you can plug into ChatGPT and you can start asking, things like that as well. So there's a bunch of that going on.
Fountain have launched 1.5. They've updated the trending feed. They've now got an improved offline mode. And this was one that I thought was interesting. They've got one tap zaps. Zaps are like likes or hearts. You can send your default amount, which, could be 10 sats. Or you can press and hold to customize it and add a message. But isn't that a boost? And so I'm confused. But anyway, it's a zap that you can hold and send a message with the zap now for some reason.
Excellent. Well, I'm sure that all of that makes sense. Fountain is doing some really interesting things with their app. It is worthwhile taking a peek at, even if I'm not entirely sure that I understand it. So anymore. Well worth taking a peek at. You were in London at the Fountain Music event, were you not?
Yes, it was a discussion panel about how you can get music using RSS. So where Wavelake seems to have sort of faded away, I think Fountain now is, trying to lead the charge. They've got a $1 hosting fee for music artists, and obviously Dovi Das, from when he was with RSS Blue, did a lot of work on HLS and streaming and live. So I think they're putting a lot of effort into that space, and good on them for doing that. So yeah, it was an interesting event, and then after it was a concert as well of independent music artists. So nice job.
Excellent. I won't ask you what it was like because you haven't been yet, but that's very cool. Podcast hosting company Castos has added pre-roll and post-roll audio capabilities in a new feature that they have dubbed Castos Campaigns. Of course, you can get that from our sponsor Buzzsprout as well. And Patreon is doing some entertaining things in their app, which, given that Patreon is the thing that keeps the Pod News newsletter going. Without the Patreon supporters, that I wouldn't be able to do the Pod News newsletter. Even then, I do not have the Patreon app on my phone because why would I need it? But this is a new tool for the Patreon app. It's ways that you can get little messages out, and good for discovery, apparently, good for all kinds of things. There's a short form posting tool called Quips. There's a redesigned home feed, collaboration posts as well. And the idea is that you reach shared audiences with other creators as well. It's very cool looking. Jack Conti, who's the CEO of Patreon, sent me a very excited email where he sounded very, 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 very excited. And then I realized that he was sending it to everybody else as well. But it was...
you weren't special.
I know, I wasn't special. I like your band, Jack. Yes. But anyway, Patreon is massive for podcasting. I think that Quips is probably going to be a great place for podcast clips and for sharing that sort of thing, particularly for some of those shows that do an awful lot of Patreon money, things like fiction podcasting and that sort of thing. So worthwhile keeping an eye on. And I suppose I ought to install the Patreon app at some point. Right, there's one final story about tech stuff. It's all about stablecoin. Sam,
I'll be quick.
Your task, if you can achieve it, is to make this interesting to me. Go.
Right. So stablecoins are basically a way for cryptocurrencies to be attached to a fiat currency. And so you can then have it on your Visa or MasterCard or wherever. Stripe are very big into this, and there's a lot of money moving around. Already they reached a 7 billion annualized run rate, which is up 50%. I believe that this is the way that micropayments in podcasting will go. I don't believe the Bitcoin methodology that we've tried to do for 2 or 3 years, which hasn't really gone beyond the geeks, is the way forward. I think once a big company does something with stable coins and you just get it with your bank account and you get it on your credit card or MasterCard.
So what's wrong with the British pound or the US dollar?
Because of the amount of money that gets taken by gateways and also the...
Who charges that?
Well, it's PayPal. It is the banks themselves, but
it's Visa.
Well, it's also to do with the interbank payments that they have to do through SWIFT, which they're trying to get around. It's those payments that means they have to charge extra money to us, the people transferring monies around. So I think they're trying to look for a different way. What I found interesting, though, was Meta obviously have opened this up in Colombia and the Philippines, and they're using Stripe. We saw YouTube recently paying creators as well via PayPal. I don't know. I have reached a point where I spoke to people this week around True Fans and we were talking about micropayments and it was just talking Swahili to them. They just don't get it. It's not connecting. We've tried this so long. The mess that we made with KeySend and Ellen Address, we'll talk about it when we talk about, comments coming back. The format looks wrong from True Fans. I'm just exhausted by doing it. I'm doing it because, that's what we in the industry want to do. But I don't believe in it anymore. I think I've reached the point where I think the Bitcoin micropayment model isn't the way forward. And I think stable coins will be, because bigger companies will use it. It'll then get mass adoption. And then we will have people say, oh, I understand it now. I just don't think we've got the method and the message correctly across.
Yeah, I'm not even sure that using, talking about stablecoin or anything else is going to help particularly, given that actually, a stablecoin. I mean, the point of it is it's a US dollar, right? Or it's a British pound.
It's attached to it. Yeah, it tracks it. It's a tracking currency. Yeah.
So, and you can change it anytime you like to a British pound or to a US dollar, right? So therefore. Yeah. There's no benefit to talk to anybody about stablecoin, surely, because it's just the same as a British pound, isn't it?
It's the fundamental movement of money. So if you wanted to, for example, we are very fortunate to get Buzzsprout pay us. You get it paid to you. You transfer it to me. We do it through Wise. It's 3 days before that's done, right? It's all interbank money transfers. It takes forever and a day. And this is a way that it should be real time and instant. And I think that, plus the fact that you can then do micropayments with it as well, pennies and pounds, or cents and dollars, I think is the way forward. And the fact that it will come from your Visa or MasterCard or your bank account, I think, again, will add that level of, I don't know, I guess, brand awareness. Yes, it's my bank giving this to me, not I don't know, MoonPay or somebody else they've never heard of.
You can certainly see that, but so I mean, I think the proof will be what happens with Visa. Are they still going to be charging you? 3% plus 50 cents to make a payment, or what's Visa going to be doing about that? And I still don't see any evidence that Visa is going to go, oh, you can do all of this for free, and we're not going to take a penny. I'm sure that they are going to take a penny.
There will be payments. Yeah. I mean, Stripe take 3% still, and I think that's where it will be. But I'm still in that phase of I'm not sure which is the right direction, and I don't think anyone is, and I think it's still early days. So I'm watching Stripe and I'm watching stablecoin because I think that will be the way forward.
Yeah, I find the whole thing fascinating and also very confusing. I wish it was less so.
Boostergram, super comments, zaps, fan mail, and voicemail. Our favorite time of the week, it's the Pod News Weekly Review inbox.
Yes, it's our favorite time of the week. So many different ways to get in touch with us. Fan mail by using the link in our show notes. Boosts or email. We share any money that we make as well. If you are a power supporter, weekly@podnews.net is where to send us an email, and we will tell you where our drinks are at the London Podcast Show, and that will be excellent. We got some fan mail, didn't we, Sam? The first one from a 35-year-old in Idaho.
I don't believe she's 35. I think she's much younger than that.
So a 35-year-old from Idaho sends us a message. I appreciate that you both understand how strange and humorous it is to be referred to as a 35-year-old podcast listener from Idaho in the Wall Street Journal. No mention of my podcasting expertise or that I work for Buzzsprout. Oh, well. The only thing that matters to me is James agrees with me. I'll take that as a win. That's Jordan from Buzzsprout, of course. You should listen to the Buzzcast podcast this week, where Jordan actually explains how she ended up in the Wall Street Journal, which is very cool. So, yes, that was a very cool thing to end up seeing.
We also got one from Dave from Canada, James, but we got it as a voicemail.
Hey, James and Sam, this is Dave from Canada, podcaster who loves listening to Pod News and everything that you guys do. Thank you for talking about more than America. Yeah, we need that. We need that in podcasting. Thanks, guys. I have a question about Apple HLS. The whole thing about Android. I don't hear a lot of Android conversations around HLS and what it's going to be for Android users looking over the wall into Apple. What's it going to be like for us who don't have Apple devices? Is there anything for us with all these announcements? I don't hear anybody talking about this. I want to participate. I want to be able to enjoy this without having to come to the dark side or Apple. So love to hear, guys. Thanks for everything you do. Let's keep podcasting, everybody. Take care.
Oh, Dave, thank you so much for that. What a great question as well, Sam.
Yes.
Do you know what the answer is?
No, I don't.
Apple Podcasts, you can install on Android phones. You can. You go to podcasts.apple.com and you then save it using Chrome to your home screen. That then makes it look like an app. And the amazing thing is you can log in and you can watch video on your Android phone. So it will work that way. Apple probably aren't going to launch an app, it has to be said, for podcasts. So I wouldn't imagine that is going to happen, but you can install it as a web app. It does work that way, so you can watch video on Apple Podcasts in that way on an Android phone. The other hope is that most people also put an alternate enclosure in, which would mean that other podcast apps could also deal with this video. That may or may not happen. Who knows? But worthwhile at least having a think about. But great question, Dave. But try just visiting the Apple Podcasts website on your Android phone and then saving it to your home screen. And that should probably do the job for you.
Super comments, James. Have we had any?
We have. We've had plenty of super comments. I should say we have had loads of sats. So this week we have had whatever 2 times 20,902 is.
Wow.
What's that? 41,800.
What did I just say 5 minutes ago? This thing doesn't work. Yes.
Yes, I know, exactly. So that's up nearly 300% week on week. So thank you all for doing that. 7,700 is from streaming as well. And that figure, by the way, includes the Pod News Daily podcast as well. The Ugly Quacking Duck, it's Bruce, sending us a row of ducks, 2,222 sats using Podcast Guru. He says, it's a strange world we live in. We complain about things taking over and use those same things to make life easier. We are fickle beings. I think he's talking about AI there. Maybe we like walking a tightrope too much. Have a good week. Thanks, 7-3. Yes, I think absolutely correct. And then a ton of messages. Seth Goldstein, the Lizzie Hale interview sounded a bit scripted. Which you guys didn't script it so much. Whoa, wait there a second, Seth Goldstein.
Anything.
We didn't script anything. Lizzie Hale scripted everything. That was the only way of hearing from her. We're very grateful that she answered a ton of questions, which you'll see in Monday's Pod News, last Monday's Pod News newsletter.
I think you'll find the Spotify lawyers scripted it all, actually.
And she wrote everything, and she very kindly read some of the answers out to us. But yes, we were totally upfront that was going on in last week's show. So I've asked her a ton of questions to her via email, Sam, but she's very kindly recorded some of her answers for us too. I think it's better to hear from people that, for whatever reason, don't want to do an interview live. I'm absolutely cool with that, as long as everybody is upfront, and we were certainly upfront on that. But Seth understood. Yes, some of it was a little bit wooden, but you kind of expect that. So Neil Velio sends us, Dan Meisner does not look like he sounds. Correct. Super smart man, and one person I look forward to seeing speaking at the podcast show in London when his talks don't clash with mine, that is, like last year. No danger of that this year, as clearly I've been snubbed this year. No, Neil, it's just that you have to be very special to speak at every single year since it started. Neil, I'm looking forward to seeing you in London. And yes, Dan Meisner is a very bright and very clever thing. Any idea what Shelley Hopkinson is talking about, Sam?
No. I don't know if that's true, fans. I don't know about what else. I mean, he says the app's very difficult to use. It's spam with stuck episodes in the feed. It needs to have a reboot, glitches. Well, I have no idea. I will. No. Thanks, anyway. Shelley. Would have been helpful. She could have been talking about Spotify. She could have been talking about Apple Podcasts. She could have been talking about anything.
Who knows what she's talking about?
No idea.
David John Clark sends us a message saying, I'm with Jordan too. There you go, Jordan. There's more than just me. In relation to podcasts referring to images that the listeners obviously can't see. At the very least, podcasters should utilize the chapter art feature and place the images there. At least listeners can see them later, or open the app to see, or better yet, most car screens display chapter art now, so you'd see the image while driving. You absolutely can. You're absolutely right in saying that. So David John Clark, thank you so much. Seth Goldstein also sent us 2 more messages. The Ambies need to branch out. That's what we're doing with the NPN Awards, trying to be more than just North America. The NPN Awards, what does that stand for? These are the Marketing Podcast Network Awards. Yes, and there are shows nominated so far, and all of that's very exciting. Nominations close on April the 30th, so they've just closed, and the awards will be notified on May the 31st. Thank you, Seth. He also says, just for the fun of it, here's another few laughing out loud. Cheers, Seth. Thank you for that. It takes a long time to bleep out the word but thank you very much. I've now got to do it all over again. So great. And thank you to our 24 Power supporters. There's beer waiting for you in London if you're going to be in London. Brian Ensminger, David John Clark, who we just heard from, James Burt, Neil Velio, who we just heard from, Seth Goldstein, who we just heard from. Hello, I think there's something going on here. Also, Ms. Eileen Smith and John McDermott. He's coming to London as well, so that's all very excellent. You can join them if you could. That would be excellent. Weekly.podnews.net is where to help us there. So, what's happened for you then, Sam?
Not too much, but we're experimenting with a new full screen video playback option. So the idea is that we detect now when there's video in the alternative enclosure, and we show a little video icon, or in the primary enclosure. But now also on the desktop, when we see there's video, we give you the option in your user setting to say go full screen, so you can get a full removed Chrome Edge video. And then if you slide the option to the side, you get to see the show notes. You can follow along with a transcript. You can leave a comment. So yeah, we're playing with that. It's a nice little video screen, but very much like David John Clark said, you can also go full screen for audio and see the chapter art as it goes by. So, again, if people start to put more interesting graphics into their chapter art, you've now got a full screen in which to show that off in. So maybe someone's got a chart with a pie chart or something on it, or you can see it in full screen rather than a postage stamp. So yeah, something we're playing with.
That's very cool. Very cool.
James, so what's happened for you?
Well, I have essentially had lots of Australian tradies doing things to my house. They are replacing the roof that was damaged with the hail. I do not understand Australian tradespeople. We had some people turning up at 6 o'clock in the morning to put a skip somewhere, so that was nice. And then the other day we had somebody turning up at 20 to 6 in the evening. It was dark, and they were saying, "Oh, we're here to remove your solar panels." In the dark on the roof. Anyway, as I was thinking about it, I thought, actually, if you're going to remove solar panels, probably removing them in the dark makes sense. I didn't think about that before, but I suppose that's probably a little bit safer. But yes, right. Australian tradespeople, work out when you're going to work, for heaven's sake.
It's a bit too hot during the day, though.
Very
James,
very bizarre. Not now, it's winter. But yes, but that's very bizarre. And that's it for this week. All of our podcast stories taken from the Pod News daily newsletter at podnews.net.
You can support this show by streaming sats. You can give us feedback using the Buzzsprout fan mail link in our show notes. You can send us boosts, or you become a power supporter like the 24 power supporters at weekly.podnews.net.
Yes, our music's from TM Studios, our voiceover's Sheila D. Our audio is recorded using Clean Feed. We edit using Hindenburg, and we're hosted and sponsored by the excellent folk at Buzzsprout, including a 35-year-old from Idaho. Start podcasting, keep podcasting.
Get updated every day. Subscribe to our newsletter at podnews.net. Tell your friends and grow the show.
And support us.
The Pod News Weekly Review will return next week. Keep listening.